This is TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Russia launched another attack on Ukraine, targeting the rural settlement of Yarova in the Donetsk region. President Zelenskyy said that more than 20 people have been killed. Our correspondent, Az Kadeji, is in Kyiv with more information. So, Oz, what's the latest? Any updates on the situation on the ground?
Well, this is a very recent strike. Breaking news within the last half an hour. We've just had a statement released on Telegram from the Donetsk regional governor, Filashkin, who said that at least 21 people have been killed. In the statement posted by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, he said that the strike, which targeted the village of Yarova, as you said, that's north of the city of Sloviansk by about 10 miles. He said that at the time, pensions were being handed out to retirees, and this strike targeted at that particular moment, with Governor Filashkin calling it an act of pure terrorism. Now, the true extent of the damage and casualties is still being assessed. As we said, this is very, very much breaking news. But President Zelenskyy has released a statement saying such Russian strikes must not be left without an appropriate response from the world. A response is needed from Europe. A response is needed from the G20. So it's very clear the Ukrainians want more pressure applied to the Russians as these brutal, devastating, deadly attacks have been targeting Ukrainian civilians routinely now. And the Ukrainian government is getting very frustrated at what it perceives to be a lack of action to pressure Russia to stop attacks like these from happening. As we said, the extent of the attack is still being assessed. So we'll keep bringing you those updates right here on TVP World, Benjamin.
All right, thank you so much, Oz, and please keep us posted as more information roll in. In the meantime, stay safe. Foreign policy is at the center of the European Parliament's second sitting day in Strasbourg. Lawmakers are set to debate security guarantees for Ukraine and how to strengthen Moldova against Russian hybrid threats. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins reports from Strasbourg.
The EU's support for Ukraine as that country weathers another year of Russian aggression, as well as Moldova as that country inches towards a parliamentary election, sit at the top of a European Parliament session on Tuesday in Strasbourg. Now, the Tuesday's session opened with the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, reiterating the EU's ongoing support for the war-torn country, stating that Putin will only back down if he is forced to. She reiterated that Russia launched 800 aerial weapons against the war-torn country on Sunday, hitting a government building. She reiterated that the EU can support the country through developing security guarantees with those 27 EU member states, as well as internal initiatives such as sanctions packages, as well as funding, which has hit a record 169 billion euros of aid since 2022. Now, the EU Commissioner for Enlargement, Marta Koss, also emphasised that the best way to support that northern neighbour is through allowing it to join the 27 EU member states strong club. That is the European Union. She highlighted that the country has hit the ground running with its reform efforts. However, there is more to do, as well as convincing those European allies that it should join the bloc, that this is a good move for the safety and security of the European Union going forward. But at roughly 12 o'clock, we're expecting to hear commentary from the President of Moldova, Maia Sandu, as that country inches towards a very decisive parliamentary election on the 28th of September. Lawmakers later in the evening will debate initiatives that they can do at an EU level to support that country, whether those hybrid threats that are suspectedly being weaponized by Russia to disrupt the safety of that country, as well as its parliamentary elections. It's hard to pinpoint just how many attacks the Kremlin is behind. However, we have heard from the Deputy Minister of the country of Moldova state that these attacks have only increased in the lead up to this election. Angela Skujins from Strasbourg for TVP World.
Ukraine could face shortages of air defense weapons after a U.S. review of military aid slowed deliveries, according to the Financial Times.
The FT reports that Kyiv has experienced months of irregular and smaller than expected weapons deliveries since a Pentagon directive in June. The concerns were raised as Russia ramps up its missile and drone attacks on Ukraine. Officials told the paper that if the Kremlin's forces continue their current levels of intense attacks, Ukraine air defense troops will face shortfalls. European Union countries have agreed to send air defense systems to Ukraine and to buy others from the United States to supply Ukraine. But these deliveries are only just beginning to arrive.
Ukrainian officials say the Russian Iskander missile that struck the Cabinet of Ministers building last weekend contained more than 30 foreign-made components. Now, the strike on Kyiv Saturday night was part of the largest aerial assaults since the start of the full-scale war, with Russia launching over 800 drones and 13 ballistic and cruise missiles at cities across Ukraine. Presidential Sanctions Commissioner of Ukraine said the missiles used in the attack had 35 components made in the United States, along with parts from Japan, the United Kingdom, and Switzerland. He named U.S. manufacturers Texas Instruments, Interlock Devices, and Altera, Britain's College Electronics, Japan's Fujitsu, and Switzerland's Traco Power. Ukrainian officials also identified 5 components from Belarus and 57 from Russia. The official added that compared to missiles from earlier years, there are now fewer Western-made parts and more sourced from Russia and Belarus. A former British intelligence officer has described the Slovakia Gap on Poland's northeastern border as NATO's weak point, warning of a buildup of Russian forces in the area. But other experts argue that Moscow's hybrid warfare is the more immediate threat to alliance members in the region.
Attention. Lithuanian and Polish forces practice defending the Suwałki Gap. The gap separates Poland and Lithuania and is sandwiched between Russia's exclave of Kaliningrad and Moscow's ally Belarus. Former British intelligence officer Philip Ingram told Britain's Sun newspaper that it could be particularly vulnerable to an attack by Moscow's forces. He highlighted troop buildups and said if Russia took control of the corridor, the Kremlin could potentially isolate the Baltic states from their NATO partners. Other analysts say Russian troop movements in the area for the regular Zapad drills are simply a display.
They like to thump their chest and show them that doesn't necessarily mean the exercises are going to be the launching pad.
Scott Lucas told TVP World that Russia's hybrid war represents a more immediate threat to NATO.
Russia is carrying out hybrid warfare. It's carrying it out in the Baltic Sea. It's carrying out in the North Sea, threatening to cut maritime cables, for example. We know about the Russian cyber operations. We know all too well about the Russian propaganda and disinformation operations. The Baltics are on the front line of that hybrid warfare. Indeed, Poland is close to the front line of that hybrid warfare. But it's really this we need to prepare for.
According to the US military, this region is one of the most potentially explosive areas in Europe, one where the alliance has rehearsed its defense.
Crowds across France took to the streets Monday to celebrate the ousting of Prime Minister François Bayrou. He lost a confidence vote in parliament earlier in the day, bringing down his government. Many protesters said that with Bayrou gone, President Emmanuel Macron should step down as well. In Clermont-Ferrand, demonstrators toasted with beer and wine while calling for his resignation. Bayrou's downfall followed an emergency confidence vote on France's debt crisis. He had warned of an existential threat if the country failed to tackle its €3.4 trillion debt. His 2026 budget called for scrapping 2 national holidays and freezing welfare payments to save about €44 billion. With Bayrou out, Macron must now nominate a new prime minister, one unlikely to command a majority and facing the same challenge of reducing France's deficit. Slovakia's capital, Bratislava, ground to a halt Tuesday morning as multiple city blocks were evacuated due to wartime discovery at a construction site. Authorities in Bratislava evacuated several downtown blocks after construction workers unearthed a 225-kilogram World War II American-made bomb at the futurist site of Sky Park, a massive new development designed by Zaha Hadid Architectures. The discovery also forced the closure of a key bridge across the Danube and halted public transport during the morning rush. Bomb disposal experts are working to defuse the device, believed to date back to 1944 when Allied forces targeted a nearby Nazi oil refinery. The street in Lisbon, where a cable car derailed last week, killing 16 people and injuring 22 others, has now reopened for traffic. 4 of the injured remain in hospital.
Police have removed the barriers as well as flowers and candles left to commemorate the victims of the crash. Authorities have also indicated that cable car services on the street will remain suspended for at least the near future. The accident happened last week on Wednesday, when the cable of the famous Gloria funicular snapped, causing the vehicle to derail. The carriage transporting 40 people then hit a wall at 60 kilometers per hour. The ride was a popular attraction for tourists visiting the Portuguese capital.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.